Hi, good day or good evening, everybody. My name is Hermes Kabrab. I'm the Director of the World Food Center, Associate Dean of Global Engagement, and Professor of Animal Science at the University of California, Davis. Today, we are presenting the 8th in a series of independent dialogues supported by USDA FAS as the precursor to the United Nations Food Systems Summit in September of this year. And today's dialogue targets track 1, which focuses on ensuring access to safe and nutritious food for all. Today's dialogue is titled Innovations for Production of Safe Food, Aflatoxin Control. Thank you to our facilitator, panelists, and other invited experts for being with us. And thanks also to those of you watching the recording of this dialogue. The format for today's event is as follows. The facilitator will give an overview of the topic, then introduce the panelists. Each panelist will give a brief presentation. After the presentations, there will be a moderated dialogue amongst all participants and panelists. We are looking for expert dialogue around 6 areas. First is to provide sectoral context for the particular innovations under examination, why these innovations are important, what are themes, innovations in this action track that are also important. The second is to encourage discussion of potential gaps in science and evidence base that warrant continuing research. Third is to encourage discussion of the potential for these innovations to deliver food system solutions, whether they might even be considered game changers. Fourth is to identify potential areas of divergence or debate among the experts or participants. Fifth is to memorialize common perspectives or themes. And finally, foster expert consensus on next steps or new directions. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. Invited guest microphones are muted for now. We will unmute you after the presentations end. Please turn off your video for the first part of the event. And please hold your questions until the discussion period and use the raised hand feature in your toolbar to be addressed. If you have issues, please send a chat to the host and you will get targeted help. The video recording of this session will be available in a few weeks on the World Food Center website. Now I'd like to introduce the facilitator of today's dialogue, Deborah Brody Hamilton, who leads the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Pakistan programs through an interagency partnership with the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. A flagship program of this partnership has been to bring USDA's biocontrol technology to Pakistan with the USDA Aflatoxin laboratory and ingredient. She also leads the Food Safety Network, an interagency coalition, including USDA, USAID, and FDA, to improve compliance with international food safety measures through government-to-government training, food safety consultations, and online knowledge bank. Thank you for agreeing to facilitate the discussion today, and I will pass it on to you and leave it on your capable hands.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody wherever you are, and thank you so much for that introduction, Dr. Kibrag. I am really honored to be moderating this session, and I'll start with something that crossed my mind. You know, we've had the past 18 months or so to do some reflection as a world. And for me, there really couldn't be anything more important than the work that this particular group of people are doing to control aflatoxin around the world. And I am honored to be a part of it. And for whatever role that I've been able to play, it will be a highlight. It will be a highlight of my life. So with that, I will go into kind of an introduction and framing the panel. Luckily today, we were able to gather a group of experts from around the world who have all been working closely together for many years. And I call them the Aflatoxin Dream Team, because these are the top scientists in the world, really. And they have worked on aflatoxin control their entire careers. So we'll be talking today about the great successes that we've seen and the great challenges with developing the USDA biocontrol product that reduces or contains the occurrence of aflatoxin. Now, I realize with the group I'm speaking to right now that I don't need to tell you what aflatoxin is, and I surely shouldn't. But since this session is being recorded and will be shared broadly, I'm going to start with a story. We're going back to 1960 to England, where there was a farm where about 100,000 turkeys died. Examination into the cause of deaths showed that the primary food source, peanut meal, was infected with something known as Aspergillus flavus. Now, Aspergillus flavus does a lot of different things, I guess, but in this particular case, it was cultured and studied, and turkey autopsies showed that the aflatoxins were targeting the liver and completely killed tissue cells and induced tumor formation. This discovery has led to substantial changes in food practices and regulations around the world. And if you can only imagine, if that's what aflatoxin does to turkeys, what it does to other living creatures, including humans. So the group today has been pioneering what was a very new approach about 30 years ago to combating aflatoxin, which is a biocontrol. And it was originally actually developed by a scientist working for USDA, Dr. Peter Cotty, and there were other scientists working at the time on similar things for USDA. So the stars aligned and a product was developed that was known as AF36. So that's kind of how the work got its start in the US. And the group here will be telling you much more about how it got its start here, and then how it's spread to the African continent. It's certainly used in many other countries in Europe, and now we're just beginning in South Asia, which is very exciting. So I'm going to start with my involvement in this aflatoxin program, which started with my going to USDA and managing a portfolio of programs for agricultural productivity in Pakistan. And at that time, I was approached by Dr. Peter Cotty, who had been approached by Dr. Pushpak Mehta. And Dr. Mehta is a scientist and corn breeder at a company called Ingredion, a US company that owns a company in Pakistan called Rafan Maize, which processes and produces about 80% of the maize in Pakistan. So that company had an aflatoxin problem, and Dr. Cotty and Dr. Mehta were very alarmed at how high it was, and began the long and difficult process of developing a biocontrol product that would target that maize crop, those maize crops in Pakistan. And Dr. Mehta got introduced to Dr. Cotty through another one of our speakers today, Dr. Ranajit Bandyopadhyay, and who had spent a semester at Texas A&M University, where Dr. Mehta was a student at one point. So all circles had come together, I guess, to form this team and this partnership. At the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service, I was working on other projects with a very fantastic organization, the Center for Agricultural and Bioscience International, better known as CABI, which is headquartered in the UK and has a phenomenal presence in South Asia, and particularly in Pakistan. You'll hear from Dr. Sabian Hani later about CABI. And so CABI joined forces as a coordinating body and began the long process of helping to develop and register Aflapac with the government of Pakistan, with another esteemed colleague who'll be speaking today, Dr. Atif Jamal, who's with the government of Pakistan as a research scientist and regulatory scientist. So the story continues, and in Pakistan, great gains have been made, and we're beginning to scale into other crops. And I know there's a great story to be told for what's going on in the African continent and other countries around the world that Dr. Hilary Mell, who's at the USDA ARS Aflatoxin Lab, will be talking about. So I am going to, with no further ado, I'm going to actually introduce the panel. Since much of the story is as much about them as it is about the biocontrol, because it really takes a group of committed collaborators to get something like an effort like this off the ground and going. It's complicated, it's not easy, it can be expensive, and it's phenomenal. So I'll start by introducing our next speaker, who'll be Dr. Hilary Mell, who is with the USDA Agricultural Research Service Aflatoxin Lab in Tucson, Arizona. And I first met Dr. Mell when she was at Virginia Tech, and she very graciously sponsored a USDA Cochrane Fellowship Program, which involved Dr. Sabian Hani, Dr. Atif Jamal, Dr. Alexandra Ortego Beltran, who's also in the audience today, and other people, and brought together a phenomenal group of scientists. And our Pakistani colleagues flew all the way to Southern Virginia to a very remote location to study aflatoxin at the laboratory with Hillary and her team. And so that really, really was a phenomenal experience. And we're really grateful that we were able to do that before COVID, while everybody could still travel. So Dr. Mill will be talking next, and she has taken over the international projects for the USDA Agricultural Aflatoxin Laboratory and is working on projects around the world. After Dr. Mill, let's see who's speaking next. We will have Dr. Ranajit Bandyopadhyay, and I have to say that Dr. Bandyopadhyay has been a guiding light for us. He joined our project as an advisor and has been coaching us and helping us throughout, and is a phenomenal source of information in addition to the many, many initiatives that he's led on the African continent in more than 22 countries. So we are extremely grateful to have him on the team. And trying to go in order, the next speaker is Mr. Martins Awafisayo. And Mr. Awafisayo is a very important voice in this dialogue because he runs a company. He is a CEO of Harvest Field Industries Limited, and a company in Nigeria. And so he understands firsthand that you can have the best products in the world, but you also have to have commercialization. There has to be a market. Farmers have to be able to purchase the product and use it. And so Dr. Martins will be talking more about that and guiding us through that story. And next we would have, let's see, Dr. Sabian Honey. And I have to say, Dr. Honey has, he runs our aflatoxin project. He also runs a project we're doing on pesticide residue mitigation that's coordinated for all of South Asia. And Dr. Honey is phenomenal. He never misses a beat. He keeps all of this information straight, and he is an expert in food safety, biocontrols, and also just a phenomenal person and project manager. So thank you, Dr. Honey. And finally, Dr. Atif Jamal. And Dr. Atif joined the group at Virginia Tech and has been a leader and a voice in Pakistan for bringing this biocontrol to Pakistan and to neighboring countries. He understands the value. He mounted an effort to get an dedicated aflatoxin control laboratory at the National Agricultural Research Center in Pakistan. And he is a delightful colleague as well as a leader in Pakistan and South Asia. So thank you all very much. And with that, I think that we will turn to Dr. Hillary Mell and have her give an overview.
Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I started my work on aflatoxin biocontrol many years ago as a postdoc with the USDA under the supervision of Dr. Peter Cotty. And as Deborah already mentioned, I then moved on to a faculty position at Virginia Tech, where I was able to host a lot of the people in this group as part of a Cochrane Fellowship. And recently, it was about a year ago, upon Dr. Cotty's retirement, I was able to come back to the USDA Agricultural Research Service and take over as the lead scientist for the Aflatoxin Biocontrol Lab in Tucson, Arizona. And I feel very privileged to be able to work in this program and on these projects in particular. It's very important work, very high impact work in terms of improving food and feed safety and human health and economic viability worldwide. So today I want to give kind of an overview of the science and the history of aflatoxin biocontrol development, both where it started in the United States and then how we've expanded this work globally. And then my colleagues, Ranjit and Sabian, will give a little more detail on the international work in terms of developing and deploying the biocontrol. So everyone here probably is pretty familiar with aflatoxin, but for people watching this who are less familiar, just some background on aflatoxin contamination in crops. There are many susceptible crops. On the previous slide, I showed some that aren't here. So we have maize, groundnuts, cottonseed, chilies, tree nuts, and many other crops are all susceptible to aflatoxin contamination. And aflatoxins are highly toxic carcinogenic metabolites produced by the fungus Aspergillus flavus. And these are toxic in parts per billion, so very, very small amounts can be extremely harmful to both humans and other animals. So health effects can include cancer, stunting, immune suppression, and even death. And I think Ranjit will be giving some more information on the global health impacts of aflatoxins. But as a result of these health effects, in many countries, especially developed nations such as the US, there are very strict regulations on the maximum amounts of aflatoxins in food and feed products. And so there's big economic impact both in management and preventing aflatoxin contamination, crop losses due to aflatoxin contamination events, and then there are barriers to trade when food and feed commodities cannot meet the regulatory standards for exporting, importing to various countries. So aflatoxin biocontrol is based on the fact that we have variation in aflatoxin production by different genotypes within Aspergillus flavus. So this figure on the bottom of the slide shows variation among some different genotypes in the amount of aflatoxin they produce. So you see on one side, very high aflatoxin production, but there's actually a fairly large proportion of the population that does not produce any aflatoxin. So it's actually missing those genes that are necessary for synthesizing the aflatoxin. And the observation was made by scientists, including those in the USDA, that aflatoxin contamination is influenced by the average aflatoxin producing potential of crop-associated fungi. So if you have more of the high toxin producers, you'll have greater aflatoxin contamination. If you can shift the population so you have more of those non-aflatoxin producers, which we call atoxigenics, then you will have less risk of aflatoxin contamination. So the aflatoxin biocontrol technology was really pioneered by USDA Agricultural Research Service scientists, specifically Peter Cotty. And this is from some work that he did initially with an atoxigenic strain known as AF36, which I'll talk about some more in the next slide. And this figure just shows that there's a very strong relationship between the amount of aflatoxin in the crop and the proportion of the atoxigenic strain on the crop as a proportion of the entire Aspergillus flavus population. And it is not uncommon to see over 90% displacement and reduction in aflatoxin contamination when these atoxigenic genotypes are applied to the crop. So based on this observation and some initial studies, the first patent application was filed by Dr. Peter Cotty of the USDA in 1989. And from there, there was a progression towards actually developing a formulated biocontrol product and getting it registered for various crops in the United States. And one thing I wanted to point out here is the role of having a partner, which in this case was the Arizona Cotton Research and Protection Council, who was able to actually build a manufacturing facility, and they still are the ones who manufacture and distribute the AF36 biocontrol product. So in 1996, the first experimental use permit was obtained from the EPA for cotton, and this led to field studies to demonstrate the efficacy and safety of the product. And then over many years that they eventually got the full registration for cotton, and then corn, pistachio, almond, and figs. So it's taken many decades to develop and progress this aflatoxin biocontrol technology in the US, but there's now widespread use of this product in areas where aflatoxin contamination is a problem. So the overarching goal of our lab is to optimize and expand the use of biological control of aflatoxins based on these atoxigenic strains of Aspergillus flavus in order to improve access, affordability, and area-wide management. And initially the focus was really in the United States, but since then it's really been expanded internationally, which I will give a brief overview of. But first, I just wanted to mention kind of the process of selecting these biocontrol strains for aflatoxin biocontrol. And it's quite an involved process. The first step is to identify atoxigenic genotypes associated with the crop. And our goal is to select native strains for the target region where we need biocontrol, and to find those atoxigenic strains that are common in the environment, because this suggests that they're well adapted to those particular agroecosystems. So how we do this is we look at the distributions of genotypes in different regions associated with different crops. We then move on to lab assays to determine which atoxigenic strains are the most effective at reducing aflatoxin contamination. And then finally, field trials, which eventually will end up being on a large commercial scale to determine the efficacy of specific strains. So our current approach to identifying the candidate atoxigenic biocontrol active ingredients is to use a variety of DNA-based methods for genotyping the isolates, and also for determining atoxigenicity based on the absence of aflatoxin producing genes. So we use simple sequence repeats or SSR markers to genotype global populations of Aspergillus flavus. And I actually just realized I haven't updated this slide. So this says we've genotyped 20,000 isolates from 36 countries. We're now closer to, I believe, 30,000 isolates. And over 13,000 unique haplotypes have been identified worldwide. So once we find those common haplotypes, genotypes, we also want to figure out which ones are atoxigenic. And the USDA lab developed a DNA PCR-based method called cluster amplification pattern analysis. And this uses markers to amplify, you see on the bottom of the slide, this is the aflatoxin gene cluster. It amplifies the different genes, and if there's the absence of those genes, then we know that, that those particular genotypes do not produce aflatoxins, and they can be used potentially in biocontrol. So I'm not going to talk much about this because this will be the focus of Ranjit's talk, but initially, is in terms of expanding internationally with this research, the USDA partnered with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, and this has involved identifying biocontrol strains for many African countries throughout sub-Saharan Africa, and bringing it through the entire process to the point where they actually have commercialized and distributed many of these biocontrol products that all fall under the name Aflasafe, even though each country has its own particular biocontrol strains that are native to those areas. So currently, one of our main focuses have been aflatoxin biocontrol for Pakistan. And Deborah already mentioned kind of the history of how this partnership developed. But this is a public-private partnership program led by Ingredion and their Pakistan subsidiary Rafan Maize. The USDA ARS and USDA FAS have worked with them to develop and come up with a product, aflatoxin biocontrol product for Pakistan called Aflapac. So I believe Sabian will be speaking a little more about this, but just as an overview for the Aflapac research and development, the USDA lab in Arizona received maize samples from Pakistan and isolated Aspergillus flavus, and using the techniques I described previously, identified a relatively frequently occurring atoxigenic strain that's endemic to the maize production areas in Pakistan. This was selected as the active ingredient for a biocontrol product that was then formulated and manufactured by Rafan Maize. And they then conducted efficacy trials in commercial maize fields in 6 major growing districts throughout Pakistan. And the product was applied by the growers. And then the crop was harvested, and the USDA lab actually analyzed many of these samples, as did CDRI, as I assume Atif will go over. And we looked at the amount of displacement of the aflatoxin producing fungi by the Aflapac active ingredient, and also looked at reduction of aflatoxin. And here in this bottom corner, it summarizes the results. So we had about 45 displacement overall on average across 24 fields. But even better than that, we had 74% aflatoxin reduction compared to untreated fields, and about 79% of the samples analyzed were less than 20 parts per billion, which is the regulatory level that we're targeting to get below. So I just wanted to mention that this process has involved many partners, both in the US and internationally. And here I've just listed a few. I'm sure this isn't everyone. The IR4 project has assisted with the registration document for Aflapac. And last summer, we put together the registration application document, which included all the data that's been developed during this process. And it was submitted to the Pakistan Department of Plant Protection in late summer 2020. So we're still waiting for the final approval for Aflapac, but we've made significant progress in this area. So that is all I have to say. I believe my colleagues will be expanding on some of these topics I've introduced. And I just wanted to give my contact information for anyone who has questions about this work. And I will now hand it over to Ranjit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate for inviting us for this panel. What I will do is to actually compress over 19 years of our work from development to delivery of aflatoxin biocontrol in Africa. And I'll highlight some of the partnership that we had with USDA, both USDA Foreign Ag Service, primarily USDA Agricultural Research Service. But at the outset, let me emphasize that finding effective biocontrol agents is an important step. That's true, but the job remains unfinished unless it is scaled up and used by the farmers. And that's where I'm going to emphasize at least half of my presentation, that how we are trying to scale up biocontrol in Africa. In Africa, aflatoxin impacts on food safety, and it cuts across 3 different sectors. It cuts across public health, trade and economy, and food and nutritional security sectors. In terms of health, about 30% of all liver cancer cases in Africa can be attributed to aflatoxin. And about 40% of all local African communities have aflatoxin higher than what is legally permissible. In terms of trade, Africa loses almost $100 million annually in lost potential export. Some of the studies actually have shown this particular potential to be much higher. There's a World Bank study that talks about $670 million per year, but a more conservative estimate would be somewhere around $100 million. Next slide. Next slide, please. Now, aflatoxin actually impacts, it actually kills people. It can impact on the industries who are seeking to get aflatoxin safe maize or groundnut. They have problems in actually getting the right kind of product. Sometimes the regulatory agencies, they would blacklist companies, and that actually has a lot of repercussions in terms of reputation of those companies. And finally, towards the beginning of this year, Kenya banned import of maize from Uganda, Tanzania, and that had a major political fallout for the whole region. And the issues came up with the East African Parliament and also in the national government parliaments of these three countries. So aflatoxin does have a huge impact in the African context. Now, there are multiple practices that can control aflatoxin, and right from planting to utilization steps. What we are going to talk about is biocontrol. Next slide, please. What we are going to talk about is biocontrol, and it's a very simple field intervention, as Hillary has mentioned, that can actually cut down aflatoxin contamination in the crop right from the farm until the crop is consumed. Now, here is an example. I will not go into the different details of how the toxin, the atoxigenic strains are identified, but here is an example of how the collaboration between USDA and IITA actually progressed. We began to work together when we had the first grant from the German government in 2003. And that's when we started the work on developing aflatoxin biocontrol in Nigeria, starting with Nigeria actually. But before that, work had started in Benin. But in right earnest, with a large amount of emphasis on biocontrol, started in Nigeria in 2003. Here is a schematic in terms of how we actually progressed in terms of exchanging fungal germplasm. So from each nation where we want to work, we collect the crop samples, and the crop samples either come to Nigeria, which is the mother lab for Africa, or it goes, if it is in East Africa, it goes to our labs in Kenya or Tanzania. Next. And from Kenya and Tanzania, the samples actually comes again back to Nigeria, where most of the microbiology is done. Next slide, please. And then finally, these isolates are actually sent to the USDA lab in Tucson. And there, much of the molecular work is done to identify the atoxigenic strains that are potential candidates for biocontrol. And then these information and the strains are then passed over to the African side. Next slide, please. And then the products are actually further tested. There are more tests that are done, and then the products are tested, and then they're sent to the target nations for which these isolates are to be developed. Next slide, please. And from Nigeria, it also goes to the other African nations, our own labs. And from there, the final product, next slide, please. And then there, the final product goes to the target nations and where it is tested and further commercialized. Now, we developed the composition of Aflasafe in Africa. We have a multi-strain product. So we always actually, all our products have got 4 strains, and these have superior capacity in terms of either they have wide adaptation, they've got wide distribution, they're highly competitive, and they've got defective aflatoxin gene clusters. And these are all native strains. So for each country, the composition of the strains are with local atoxigenic A flavors. So these 4 strains or active ingredients are grown, and then they are multiplied on sorghum grains like the ones that you are seeing in the middle here, and then these spore suspensions are made, and then the spore suspensions and heat-cured sorghum grains, which act as a carrier, they are mixed together in a seed treater, and then that's what the product is. That's what the product looks like. It's basically heat-cured sorghum grains coated with a suspension of spores, a blue-colored dye, and a polymer, which is an additive that helps the spore suspension stick to the grain. And these are packed, and the farmers use these products 10 kg per hectare, 2 to 3 weeks before flowering, and 1 application is required for the entire season. And it costs between $15 to $20 per hectare. Now, in terms of efficacy, I'll give you just 2 examples. Once we have the product, they are tested in various parts of a country. Like, for example, in this case of Ghana, it is tested in various agro-eco zones. And here is an example of what kind of control we can get. So these are control and treated plots. You can get in between 96 and 100% control in case of groundnut, and a similar thing is in case of maize. So the degree of control that we can get in this case is really very high. Forward, please. Now, the reason why we get the high amount of control is the shift in the strain composition, as Hilary mentioned. So these are native strains, so they are always found in the soil before treatment. But after treatment, the atoxigenic strains, they are found in very high proportion in the treated plot compared to the untreated plot, which is in red. And the same story is in soil as in grain, as well as in grains. And since we have a large proportion of the fungus on the grain, which are non-toxin producers, and that's the reason why we had low amount of aflatoxin in the crop as well. Now, here's an example of Kenya, where people have actually died. In some of these areas where you have done these efficacy trials, people are known to have died because of aflatoxin poisoning. Now, in this case, what we can see, the green bar is the treated and the red bar is the untreated. And here is on the y-axis, you see the amount of aflatoxin. What we find is that in Kenya, under these circumstances, the 100%, all the samples that we actually analyzed were safe from aflatoxin according to the Kenyan standard, which is 10 parts per billion. But it is also safe for the European Union standard, which is 4 parts per billion. But if you look at the untreated side, about 50% of the samples that we collected from these farmers' fields, these were unsafe to consume. And about 25% of those grain samples had very high levels of aflatoxin, which are enough to actually sicken people. And so it's a grave concern for all of us that we need to actually control this toxin in real life situation. So once we have the efficacy data, we combine that with the toxicological and ecotoxicological data, and then we submit these dossiers for registration purposes. Now, this is an example of Ghana again, where a product is registered, and that's what the label looks like. And invariably, all the products in Africa, next slide, please. All the products in Africa, they have the highest category of safety that WHO provides, which is a U category. And that's why you have the green label on these products. Now, until now, in the world, there are about 17 commercial products that have in 13 countries. The US was the first one. There are 2 in the US, which is AF36 and Aflagard. And then there's another product in Italy, and again, USDA was greatly involved in this, in the development of this, along with an Italian university. And there are about 14 products that are registered in Africa in 10 countries. And in all, the number of registered atoxigenic strains that are with the regulatory agency, there are 59 atoxigenic isolates that have been registered as active ingredients, and out of which 56 are in Africa itself, because we have got multi-strain products. Okay. Now, in terms of the scale-up process that we have followed until now, we had a two-step process. One is incentivization for testing the market and product promotion. And the reason for doing that is aflatoxin is something that is not visible, and it's actually the awareness about the problem is comparatively low in Africa, and also there's not, I shouldn't say lag, but less distinction in between good quality grain and bad quality grain in the market. So there are various reasons why there is a need for incentivization of products. And so we had a project called Ag Results, through which we incentivized the use of Aflasafe for 5 years in Nigeria. And subsequently, once we demonstrated that it can be actually scaled up, we went into a commercialization mode, and through the Aflasafe technology transfer and commercialization project. And this was done because we could actually license the product to the private sector, and that could lead to higher level of sustainability of the availability of the product. Now, I had mentioned earlier that for the research process itself, you actually go up to the registration of the product, but subsequently we need to actually partner with the private sector for delivery purposes. So for that, we conduct a market analysis and evaluate the commercialization potential in each country. We then mobilize private sector and then select a manufacturer and distributor and start creating awareness of the problem. And then we test the market with the investor and conduct large-scale demonstration and awareness raising. And subsequently, the product is then licensed to the private sector for in terms of setting up the factory and other aspects. So this is at a glance where we are right now. So Aflasafe work is actually continuing in 20 countries. And as I mentioned, there are 14 products that are registered in 10 countries. More than, actually, it's not 5 million, this is an old slide, more than $6.5 million have been invested by the private sector to set up, to commercialize Aflasafe. There are currently 4 factories which are operational. One in Nigeria, the one that you see here, this has been dismantled, and I think Martin is going to talk about the factory that he has set up in close to Lagos, Nigeria. And there is another factory in Kenya, the third factory is in Senegal, and the fourth one is in, I can't see this here, Tanzania, right? Now, there are other factories coming up, one in DR Congo, there is another one coming up in Rwanda. Recently, we licensed the Aflasafe in Mozambique, and they are investing $1.5 million to set up their own factory. There's one coming up in Sudan. So there are more factories coming up in various, and there's one coming up in Burundi as well. So currently, 8 companies are manufacturing and distributing Aflasafe. And Aflasafe is available right now in 9 countries commercially. There are 92 distribution points that are available from where farmers can actually purchase, which is not a great deal for the time being, but we are just starting up. As of February, about 3,600 tons of Aflasafe have been sold to in the market that can cover 360,000 hectares. And our estimate is that about 720,000 tons of aflatoxin safe grains, both maize and groundnut, have been produced in Africa. Some impacts in Nigeria, what an external evaluator has found that the annual net income by the farmers, it had increased for the Aflasafe users about $318 or 16% for smallholder farmer. And in terms of utilization of the grain for household purposes, 13% more aflatoxin safe maize was being used by the rural household. We have seen a revival of the groundnut export sector in both Nigeria and Gambia, where the countries had almost lost the export to the European Union. In Kenya, in one project, they had actually produced enough aflatoxin-safe maize using Aflasafe to feed 500,000 Kenyans for 1 month in a drought-prone area. Aflasafe has been incorporated into the National Agriculture Investment Plan in 6 countries. As I mentioned earlier, private sector has invested $6.5 million. And on top of that, this has actually helped in creation of jobs. But we have just started. So even though the availability of the product is available, but we have a long way to go, because right now we are just touching the surface of the aflatoxin conscious core market, and we need to go into the rural household sector actually. So what are the key lessons that we have learned? One is that a key public sector, Aflasafe is a public sector innovation. Okay, so this must be championed by the public sector initially, with support from the development investor and for the national government for uptake by the private sector. There are scaling up challenges of low awareness, inadequate market incentives, and poorly enforced regulatory regulations. Now, the other thing is that technology development and commercialization of Aflasafe required intervention by a team in a phased manner. Initially, it was led by scientists for developing the product, but later on, the commercialization experts, the engineers, the tech transfer experts, they had to come in to help to scale up the product. We do need a well-planned commercialization strategy, and the investors need to be selected carefully. And the licensing agreements, the way it is made, is actually crucial. Technology developers require some time to actually champion and steer the technology after licensing to the public-private sector. So it's not that once you license the product to the private sector, the job is over. Still, there is backup required, and because the licensees also require a few years of backstopping before they become independent. The public sector investors are actually interested in the business case, the risk, and return on investment on several other aspects. The marketing strategy for an entirely new product segment addressing a significant but little known public health risk is more than a sales strategy. It requires a strategic collaborative approach by different partners. This has been a work and lastly, this is a new paper that came out just last week, where Alejandro and we published this in Global Food Security, and we demonstrated that 15 of the 17 SDGs are influenced by Aflasafe-centric management system. We can send you the PDF, and this is an open access article, so this is available freely. This has been possible because of the involvement of a large number of partners, and some of our partners are also development investors. We are fortunate to actually have support from various donors, and we have a team of both for product development and testing, for DNA technologies, which is basically the USDA team. We have engineers and manufacturers, which is again a collaboration between USDA and IITA. We have a commercialization and business development experts in the team. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Ranaji, and that's a fact. Let's continue this fascinating story then. And so Martins will be talking about his experience running a private company and the commercialization side of Aflasafe.
Yes, thank you. My name is Martins Awofisayo. I'm the Managing Director, CEO of Harvestfield Industries Limited. We are a 21-year-old company in Nigeria, principally into agrochemicals and biocontrol manufacturing. As you can see who we are one of the leading agrochemical companies in Nigeria, and our mission is to become a major driver of agrochemicals and biocontrol agents in Nigeria. And this is the vision that drove us to bid for the commercialization of Aflatoxin in Nigeria. Our core businesses are crop protection, public health, agricultural equipment, and seeds. And under the crop protection is where the Aflatoxin comes in, the biocontrol products. We are a very structured company, and we cover the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. Nigeria is divided into 6 regions, and Harvestfield have a distribution network, as you can see on the map of Nigeria, where Harvestfield have locations of warehouses. So we are actually very close to farming areas in Nigeria, which we call the sink areas. And each of these areas, we have warehouses and offices, and of course, distribution vehicles and technical staff that promote all our products, including Aflatoxin, especially on the GAP, good agricultural practice. Yes, the challenges that we faced when we took over the license of manufacturing and distribution of Aflatoxin. Definitely, this is a research to market product, which is a new innovation, which is not yet known to all the farmers. And the major challenges we faced was that Aflatoxin is not visible. The aflatoxin issues are not visible. Most farmers, especially smallholder farmers, they are interested in what will increase their yield. But after the application of Aflatoxin, it is not something that is really feasible for them. So it's a big challenge to us. And that really caused what is called low awareness and adoption of Aflatoxin technology. But because of our own vision, we determined to make sure that this product succeed in Nigeria, especially in the 2 areas of health challenges and, of course, barriers to trade. So with this, we were able to work with regulatory bodies, stakeholders in Nigeria, and we were able to organize a workshop that we had almost about 84 participants that crosses all stakeholders in food safety in Nigeria, the FAO, the NAFDAC that is in charge of the regulation of pesticides in Nigeria. We have the Federal Ministry of Health, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. We were able to organize them under one roof, and we were able to present the challenges of aflatoxin and the dangers that it poses to our health and trade barriers. So, but at the moment, the absence of weak enforcement policy on food safety in Nigeria is a big challenge to us. But we are about to be surmounting that now with the support we are having from FAO. So the weak purchasing power of smallholders is also a challenge. Smallholders are more interested in any product that can increase their yield, not really in terms of quality. They are only after increase in yield. So this is a big challenge to us because Aflatoxin is being seen as another financial burden to them when they have to apply it. And they are more interested in applying fertilizer, growth enhancement, and so on. Another one is a poor record of aflatoxin-related health challenges in Nigeria. Nigeria does not have a clear-cut data on aflatoxin traceable deaths. So this is not encouraging, and it's not really making the populace to understand that aflatoxin actually causes a lot of health hazards. The other one is the food safety standard. As at now, as we speak, Nigeria has not adopted an acceptable standard, whether it's for 4 per billion or 10 per billion. This is also another challenge that we have. And the last one is a lack of access to a friendly and cost-effective field testing technology. So, and when you go on the field, farmers are faced with challenges of even determining whether their crops is aflatoxin infected. So, and because there is no simple testing technology that are available to them, some of them have to travel to a long distance to get a laboratory to be able to test their crops and grains and so on. So if there is a way that we can have a simple aflatoxin testing technology, will be very like what you have in COVID or in malaria, the rapid diagnosis test, RDT. That will make this to be more friendly. But as at now, is a big challenge to us, because we have to have a lot of equipment, testing kit, grinding the maize, and so on and so forth. So it's a challenge. This is an area that is really affecting us now. The success is being a company that is forward-looking. We are determined that the future is very bright for AflaSafe technology in Nigeria, and we are going to be as part of the history of ensuring food safety in Nigeria and aflatoxin-free food. So AflaSafe decided to facilitate gradual awareness and adoption of AflaSafe technology among commercial farmers. And how did we achieve this? We collaborated with farmers groups, farmers associations in Nigeria to work with them on their GAP, good agricultural practice, with the introduction of AflaSafe technology. So this really gave us a lead into creation of awareness amongst farmers. Last year, we had a collaboration with the Maize Growers Association of Nigeria, where we partner with them, and we were able to train over 100,000 farmers in the use and application of AflaSafe. And after the harvest, we were able to collaborate with them as well on testing both treated and untreated farms. And these were brought to bear that aflatoxin is actually embedded in Nigeria and is a challenge to everyone. So, but in supporting this as well is to ensure that there will be availability of the product in Nigeria. So AflaSafe decided to invest over $5 million in building the largest ultra-modern AflaSafe manufacturing plant, which is 100% completed. We are already installing the equipment and the manufacturing facilities, and within the next 2 weeks, we will start production at our new AflaSafe modern manufacturing plant. And also the training of 500 lead farmers and extension agents across Nigeria. You remember that I said Nigeria is divided into 6 geopolitical zones. So we were able to have representation in every state and every region of Nigeria to participate and collaborate with extension agents. These extension agents are the confidence of farmers. They respect them with their opinion. So we have trained all the extension agents across the state of 36 states in Nigeria on how to use and apply Aflatoxin. Apart from collaboration with farmers group, we are also in working relationship with a lot of commercial farms like Dangote, Olam, Babangona, so many of them that are exporters of maize and groundnut out of Nigeria. So all these are coming to fruitful in this 2021 season. And the last one, which is the biggest, this year, the National Council on Agriculture, which is the largest decision-making and policy maker for agricultural programs in Nigeria. The National Council on Agriculture meets only once a year, and they make policies for the next year at the council meeting. Was adopted as a challenge to Nigeria, and this was put on a front burner with the Aflatoxin technology, that every state in Nigeria now, there will be a committee called Aflatoxin Mitigation Committee in every state of the Ministries of Agriculture. This is a landmark for us, landmark achievement, that it is now part of the National Council on Agriculture policy. And the next one that happened was the FAO. FAO 2 weeks ago signed agreement on Aflatoxin mitigation and control in Nigeria and management with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, which it is resident, the project is resident, that is called Hands in Hand. And Aflatoxin control is one of their major focus. So this is a landmark. And the National Nigeria Export Promotion Council has also set up a committee on zero reject of our commodities out of Nigeria to ensure that the barriers, which is also traceable to Aflatoxin contamination, a committee has also been set up by the Export Promotion Council. So these are the good informations and the opportunities that are coming in. Every day we are continually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Harvestfield is aware that this new innovation is going to take a few years before we get to the final destination. And we are resolute to ensure that we make a success out of it. And of course, as part of Harvestfield Industries Limited CSR, we want to ensure that we contribute to the food safety of Nigeria, and also empower and enrich the pocket of our farmers going forward. I think this is what I have for you now. And yes, this is the testing kit program that I was trying to say. You can see the process of determining the contamination of our produce in maize and groundnut. It's a cumbersome process to conduct a mobile test at the field. So you can see some of our staff there. This is what we did together with the Maize Growers Association in 2020. So if we can have a technology that will make it more simpler, then it will be easier for farmers to be able to even conduct the tests themselves, just like the COVID test and the malaria rapid diagnostic test. If we can have that kind of a technology, it will enable every farmer to be able to procure and have. Yes, you can see one of the sampling that we did on the farms that we treated and untreated. So the process is to arrive at and we carried out the farmers along as well. ensuring that the samples that were taken were representative of treated farm and untreated farm. Thank you very much. And this was the picture we took when we were signing off the Aflatoxin from IITA. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much for that fascinating presentation. And it's a very nice segue because we're going to turn to Dr. Sabian Honey from Pakistan right now. And Sabian has been trying to get his group to Nigeria to study at the IITA lab for 2 years now. So inshallah, it will happen. And so Sabian, take it away.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Deborah, for providing me this opportunity. So hello, everyone. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Sabian Farisani from CABI. From last 6 years, my major role in CABI has been to manage and execute biological control programs, especially for the safer food production. And since 2018, I had an opportunity to lead the aflatoxin team here in Pakistan. CABI is an historical institution working across 76 countries, and Pakistan is one of the senior members since 1957. We have been involved in various regional cooperation to introduce technologies to improve people's lives through knowledge sharing and scientific information over a period of century. CABI's major contribution in Pakistan involves the introduction of green pest management technologies to produce improved quality food. In this journey, we, through the joint cooperation with USDA, have made significant efforts to strengthen agriculture system in Pakistan with smart and innovative technologies. Today, I would like to share our very recent experience, which is a public-private partnership program to introduce aflatoxin biocontrol technology in Pakistan. Basically, this is an industry-driven initiative led by Ingredion, which has its subsidiary company, Rafan Maize in Pakistan. Basically, this cooperation was supported by USDA, and we have partnered with Pakistan Agricultural Research Council for its execution in Pakistan. So basically, it was back in 2016 when Rafan Maize collected samples from major maize growing areas of Pakistan, and they were the USDA experts in Arizona. These samples revealed presence of aflatoxin significantly exceeding their permissible limits. And at that moment, the USDA Arizona laboratory helped the Rafan team to identify and isolate the indigenous atogenic strain of spudulous flavors for its assessment in Pakistan. You can see from this chart that at that sample, we have multiple samples which have aflatoxin level even up to the 200 parts per billion. So it was a really, significantly exceeding limit from the permissible limit, which is only 20 parts per billion. Yeah. So afterwards, the Rafan team developed the Aflapac, which is first of its kind of biocontrol product for Pakistan. And in last couple of years, we have paved the way towards its commercialization. CABI, as lead implementing partner for this cooperation, organized a working group to liaison these efforts in Pakistan. So we are very thankful that the experts from the Rafan Maize, from the Ingredion, from Pakistan Agricultural Research Council, especially the CDRI, and USDA contributed from the very first day of this initiative. And we were able to evaluate the efficacy of Aflapac in Pakistan. So in last couple of years, we have experienced different phases of this ongoing cooperation. Yeah, the very first success in this cooperation was the launch program. At that moment, basically CABI repatriated the Aflapac strain from University of Arizona to Pakistan, and the team conducted relevant laboratory tests, and after confirmation of its nature, handed over the Aflapac isolate to Rafan Maize. And I personally believe that this was a very prestigious moment for us, because Rafan Maize CEO, officials from US Embassy Islamabad, and USDA FAS colleagues, they basically witnessed this public-private partnership, and that was the moment when we joined hands with each other and we initiated our efforts in Pakistan. The other milestone which we achieved was the moment when scientists from Pakistan Agricultural Research Council, Rafan Maize, and CABI, they were awarded Cochrane Fellowship to visit Virginia Tech Agriculture Research and Extension Center in USA. And I think that this was one of the best part we accomplished in this cooperation, because Aflatoxin was a totally new subject for Pakistan. But during this 2-week fellowship, Dr. Hilary Mel, Dr. Ken Collicott, and Dr. Alejandro, and even Dr. Michael Braverman, they helped the fellows to understand the techniques and science involved in this technology. And it was very helpful for us that based on the learnings from this fellowship, CDRA team was able to complete the laboratory studies related to Aflatoxin efficacy. Additionally, based on the learnings from this fellowship, the Pakistan team, we approached maize growers with the support of Rafan Maize, and it was very kind enough that the Rafan Maize, they facilitated these field visits to the maize growers. And we also contacted the government officials to demonstrate this novel technology to them. And these were kind of training sessions. And during the last couple of years, we implemented more than 30 sessions for the farmers and government officials. And more than 1,000 maize growers, they participated in these training sessions. And we believe that these sessions were very helpful in developing the understanding about this biocontrol technology and its related benefits in terms of safer food and trade enhancement. And we hope once the Aflatoxin is commercially available in Pakistan, it will be readily adopted by the farmers. So moving forward, we helped the CDRI, who is based at National Agricultural Research Center, which is one of the, the biggest research center in Pakistan. And we helped them to upgrade their facility and established first Aflatoxin biocontrol laboratory in Pakistan. So this is a kind of unique facility which has the capacity to handle biocontrol technology of aflatoxins and is serving to share their experience with other national scientists in Pakistan. And again, this was a kind of very prestigious moment for us because the USAID official, the USDA team, the chairman, Pakistan Agricultural Research Council, our senior regional director from CABI, and even agriculture counselor from USDA, they were basically part of this inaugural ceremony. And this facility, it has also got very wider publicity, and our national newspaper, Dawn, and even some social media, they basically highlighted this inauguration of this facility. And Dr. Atif Jamal, in his presentation later, he will be presenting the available technical facilities in his laboratory and what they are in the near future. So during these couple of years, we completed the field efficacy trials and looked for the commercialization of Aflatoxin in Pakistan. And during this course of time, we found that existing regulations of Pakistan only have provision to accommodate registration of chemical pesticides. And so this was a kind of, you can say, a turning point in this cooperation. So we, with the support of our international experts, especially I would like to acknowledge the efforts of Dr. Michael Braverman, Dr. Hildy, Dr. Lloyd, and our team in Pakistan, who jointly worked extensively and drafted the guidelines for registration of biopesticides in Pakistan. So these guidelines, they have been submitted to our regulatory authority in Pakistan. So the photo which you are seeing is a kind of dignitaries from the regulatory authorities who are basically reviewing our document. And we hope that these guidelines will help the regulatory authorities to handle registration of biopesticides in Pakistan, of which Aflatoxin definitely would be the first ever biopesticide registered in Pakistan for aflatoxin management. And I think this is the part where I would also like to appreciate and acknowledge the efforts of the ingredient and the Rafan Maize who have put their, the time and their investment to make this Aflatoxin happening in Pakistan. And as a project manager, I can foresee that in very near future, we would be able to have, So in the end, I would like to acknowledge and extend my sincere thanks to all the working group members who contributed to accomplish this endeavor. We all experienced COVID-19 and have seen that how this pandemic affected our routine work. But I would appreciate Rafan Maize and CDRI team who capitalized the maize cropping season and were able to manage the things well in time. I must say that all this happened due to the teamwork and the trust which we build on each other towards our common goal, which is to promote green technologies through model of Aflatoxin for safer food production in Pakistan. And I believe that this cooperation will not only open new windows for commercialization of biopesticides in Pakistan, but will take it to the regional lead for aflatoxin management, especially in the Southeast Asia region. Yeah, so thank you very much. So this is all which I have so far to share with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabian, and it's great to see the photos with so many people from who are participating in this session today. So last and certainly not least is Dr. Atif, who stood up a new aflatoxin lab for the government of Pakistan. He went to Virginia Tech, and 6 weeks later, he worked tirelessly to develop and staff and get this new lab up and running. So Dr. Atif, we look forward to your presentation. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Deborah. And good morning, good evening. I am honored to be speaking on a panelist with Dr. Hillary and Dr. Ranjit. I have just started working. It's only 2 years that I have started working in aflatoxin control program. So I'll be just talking about what PRC is doing in Aflapark. A majority of things have been told by my colleagues. Sabian has told that what Aflapark is, and Deborah, Dr. Mel, everybody has told. So PRC is actually Pakistan Agriculture Research Council. The main aim of Pakistan, the two functions of this organization are research and coordination. PRC is coordinating with more than 100 countries and with more than 80 international agencies in which USDA, USAID, and CABI are trusted partners. Dozens of projects have been granted by them, and they have funded them. To summarize the role of PARC, let's go back to 2018. As Sabian told you that the Aflapark strain was repatriated, and it was given as because PRC was a apex organization, so we were handed over the this Aflapark so that we can conduct field trials and we can help Rafan maize, because this was an excellent example of public-private partnership. So we started trials because we want to see the efficacy of the native strain, because as you all know that this strain was isolated from Pakistani samples. So we did those trials. We started them in collaboration with CABI. And then as Sabian mentioned, that we went for Cochrane Fellowship. And that Cochrane Fellowship helped us a lot, because as a research perspective, if I say that changed a lot, because we were doing some experiments. When we went there, we had hands-on training. We met with Dr. Mel, Dr. Ken, Dr. Alejandro. They were the experts of that of this aflatoxin biocontrol program. So we started that. So next slide, please. So that helped a lot, and they told us everything, that what are the principles of this aflatoxin and all this stuff. So we came back, and as Sabian has mentioned, that in February 2020, we upgraded a laboratory. So that laboratory, it helped us, because once you visit Virginia Tech and you see all the stuff, so you want to do all this stuff in Pakistan as well, although it's very difficult because they have been doing it for the last 20 years, and we just went there for 2 weeks. So we came back and we started working under the guidance of obviously USDA and all these scientists. So now we have the laboratory in which we have everything. Means this is isolation room. We have isolation room. We have media room. We have microscope. We have incubators. So because when we went to Virginia Tech, we saw different examples that there's contamination is our biggest problem. So this lab is specifically built for, is made for aflatoxin program, and none other work is being done here. This is you can say all the work which is related to Aflapark was done here. We started making inoculum for Rafan maize because at that time they didn't have the facility for making inoculum. So we provided that inoculum, and then they made the product, and field trials were conducted. So this is just a overview of what Dr. Mel started. And so you see, we take samples, we can isolate and purify Aspergillus flavus. Now we can identify toxigenic and toxigenic strains on the basis of microscopy, means L strain or L strain, and we are capable of doing CAP analysis. We are doing BCG analysis, lab trials, ELISA. So everything we are doing in our lab now. And one thing which is very important, that after this training, we coordinated with that, means we are in continuous coordination with Dr. Mel, USDA scientist, Dr. Ken, and they are giving us virtual training. So that is improving a lot, and that is helping a lot for us. The two roles which I started for PRC, that is research, and to aid and promote that coordinate agricultural research. So this is important, awareness. Now because we are doing research, the other thing the problem which I can see is the awareness. People are ignorant. They don't know that how to control aflatoxin, because there are now, as majority of you might know, that there are two phases of aflatoxin contamination. One is in the field, and the other one is post-harvest. Unfortunately, I was all the projects which were given, majority of them given in Pakistan, were for the phase 2, means that once after post-harvest, people got the projects to improve the storage facilities. They started doing, they wanted to control aflatoxin via plant extract with essential oils. That's what they are doing even now. 2 days ago, I received a call from my colleague, and she said that, because now all know that I'm working on aflatoxin, and she said that I want to have a project on aflatoxin. I said, okay, so what will you do? She said, I'll try to control aflatoxin. I said, how? She said, by essential oil. So I said, do you think that you can do it? So she said, honestly, I know that it won't work, but it is just for a MPhil student. So this is the problem. Even in research, people does not know what aflatoxin is, means how to control it. It's always better, because from 2018, now we know that if we can apply atoxigenic strains, we can mitigate aflatoxin there. So this is very important for me. I think PRC is playing a role, that they can create awareness amongst the people and universities to the agriculture officers, so that they can know that this is another way of controlling aflatoxin. So this is last month, I was invited to the University of Arid Agriculture in Pakistan, in Islamabad, Rawalpindi, and because there was a session of integrated disease management, and I shared my experience about this biocontrollant, and the topic was Aspergillus versus Aspergillus. And I told them that this is a new intervention for controlling aflatoxin in Pakistan, not in the world, because it's being used there for more than 2 decades. So all the students, agriculture officers, they were amused. They said, okay, we didn't know that this aflatoxin can be controlled by this way. So they were very happy. I told them, and they said that, okay, we can use this intervention for other crops. And after this maize, because we have done research work in maize, and we have submitted all the documents to DPP, and hopefully very soon we will see that first biopesticide in South Asia will be registered. Next step is chilies. So as a PRC scientist, we have now shifted with the help of USDA, USAID, CABI. We have now gone for chilies, because Pakistan is 6th world's producer in chilies. And out of that, we are unable to export chili because of aflatoxin contents. Sabian, me and Hamza, we went to Sindh last year, and we collected samples, and it was from the field. And I was thinking that, okay, we have just collected it from the field, so the aflatoxin contents will be less, because if it would have been taken from storage, then we could have think that the aflatoxin contents would be higher. But when I brought them in my laboratory and we checked the aflatoxin contents, out of 50 to 38 samples showed more than 20 parts per billion aflatoxin contents. That is, the permissible limit is 20 parts per billion. So this shows the intensity that we need to work on war footing for this chilies also. And now we are starting with the help of USDA that we have started working on that. And for creating awareness, I have requested, because we have got some funding, so I have requested CABI that we can arrange a training from all Pakistan. Means we have 4 provinces, 5th is GB, and then Azad Kashmir. We can write to their secretaries that send 2 people, nominate 2 people, and they can come to PARC, CDR, NARC, and we can train them so that awareness is created amongst the masses, starting from agriculture officers, university people, and then it can trickle down to the farmers. So this was my last slide there, and this is my last slide here also. So I would like to thank USAID, USDA, CABI Bioscience, IATA for giving us opportunity for Cochrane Fellowship and enabling us to learn the techniques to control aflatoxin, which I am sure will be helpful in mitigating this problem in Pakistan. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atif. And I know we're running short a little bit on time, so I think that the next point would be to open things up for discussion with our expert group. And I see that Lloyd Garcia already has some questions. So perhaps, Lloyd, you can jump right in. And for anyone who doesn't know, Dr. Lloyd Garcia was he worked for the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. He is an entomologist, and he was our advisor in Pakistan during the early years of this project.
So can I answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you repeat the question?
Okay. Hello, everyone. That was great presentations. Thank you, everyone. So I had 2 questions that came up to my mind listening to the presentations. And the first was that from the experience in Africa, I was wondering what steps Ranajit might think Pakistan could take to increase the adoption in Pakistan, and especially for the biocontrol of aflatoxin in Chile. And then I heard Dr. or Mr. Martins talk about the need for a rapid test. So I was wondering, is there any research underway right now to develop a rapid test? Thank you.
Oh, Ranajit, are you on? Please go right ahead.
Thanks, Lloyd, for the questions. Steps to take in Pakistan in terms of improving adoption. There's one good thing in Pakistan about the AfroPak program is that the way it started, it's initially led by the private sector, and it has been started as per the demand or the needs of the private sector. And that's a very positive thing, actually, that has that will actually help in improving adoption beyond Rafan maize. And I think once people actually see the successes of Rafan maize, then other people are going to follow. There is nothing succeeds like success, you know. So we need to see the Rafan example, and then I think it's going to improve from there. In terms of Chile, I think it's the same story that we are actually seeing in Africa for groundnuts. The export market is there, and I think the export market is currently affected because of aflatoxin, because Chile is one of the major export commodity of Pakistan for the European Union, and that has been largely affected. And I think what can be done is to work with the value chain actors who are affected by aflatoxin, work with them and see what kind of partnerships, public-private partnerships can be arranged in terms of the supply chain and what kind of arrangements can be made to improve the supply chain. That should be the first point of entry, because that's a low-hanging fruit right now. And once you have that, again, gradually things are going to expand. So what we have experienced is that aflatoxin is a hard sell, and it's a hard sell, and therefore one has to be innovative regarding how they handle the thing. Now, in terms of research for rapid tests, this is again a holy grail, I would actually say, because a large amount of investment is going on into developing simple tests. I remember about 10 years ago, the Gates Foundation funded MIT to develop a paper-based test that they said will be 1 cent a test. That didn't actually materialize, but there's a lot of work going on in terms of using different kinds of, for example, infrared and those kind of methods are being tested on. You know, now the test that we normally use in the field, that's also pretty simple. It's actually a test that Alejandro developed. The process was developed by Alejandro. It costs about in between $8 to $10 per test, and that can be done in the field itself. Finding anything cheaper than that, people have been trying to do it, and it has not been successful until now. But hopefully, some of the new methods people are trying that may help in terms of hastening the process of testing. I'm sorry, that's about it right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Ranajit. I have, if there's no other hands up at the moment, I do have a question. We have Pushpak Mehta from Ingredion, and Pushpak has devoted heart and soul to this project in Pakistan. And I thought we would just talk, if Pushpak, would you share a little bit of your experience on getting this going, and also what you think could be learned from the Africa experience?
And thanks for the opportunity. I think Dr. Bandyopadhyay mentioned as far as the importance of involving the commercial private sector as far as Aflapak is concerned, and the experience. I think the story has been relayed already. I think, you know, when we consider the reason why it's important to involve a company like Ingredion, and you know, it happens that in this case it's Ingredion, but I mean, it's a public company, right? So they have certain timelines. There are many eyes, whether it's the budget or the success chances of success and things like that. Ingredion in particular has a very strong commitment to food safety, security, sustainability for requirements, regulations, but also, again, being a public company, it's in public eye, and it has to do things in a certain way, keeping that long term. I mean, Ingredion is more than 100-year-old company. Having said that, the companies require certain things to be present in a project, clarity, right? I mean, timeline, what is expected of the company, whether it's the budget or when the product will come to fruition. All these things need to happen. I mean, research is important, but a lot of research, golden rice for the breeders in us is sitting on the shelf, right? It's not in people's plate yet. So I think some of these things do need to be taken care of if any project wants to involve a private company and wants their continued participation. I mean, regulatory commercialization was mentioned elsewhere, and I think it's a mixed bag, as Dr. Bandyopadhyay can elaborate more if needed. But there were countries in Africa which focused on the problem, looked at the solution, and that the solution was safe enough, was being implemented for a couple of decades. In other parts of the world, they went right straight to commercialization, and they are reaping the benefits. So, I mean, if you see, on the other hand, the timeline that was shared for the US, I mean, it took a couple decades to get that, approval and registration. Now, okay, for initial research, maybe that was needed, but we have to appreciate and understand that not every country is going to have that kind of wherewithal or regulatory infrastructure to do that. And that can be a big hurdle for involving a private company in any field. I mean, mycotoxin, aflatoxin is one of many mycotoxin. There are phemonicins and several other, and for some there is a product that is already available, but commercialization is a very different ballgame. So if there's anything specific that you would like to know, Deborah, I can happily elaborate.
Thank you for sharing that, and for Ingredion's very important story in this. We definitely wouldn't be where we are if you hadn't contacted Ranajit and started the ball rolling. We're running a little bit short on time. We have about 10 minutes left. If there's, I do have a lightning round I'd like to do at the end, and that I'd like to open up to the whole group. But any other comments? We haven't heard from some of you, and I know you're all experts in this in various parts of the world. So if anything else, or we can do my lightning round. Okay, and I'd like everybody to participate. Oh, yes. Yes, Babar Bajwa.
Yeah, thank you. No, I just want to thank everybody that we are talking on such an important topic. But I would also like to highlight the one thing, which is the partnership. I believe as we go along, partnerships are very important. And in the partnerships, this trust is important. And especially, we don't have to lose the patience, because where there are scientific endeavors, sometimes the science response time is not very rapid. And also we see that sometimes it takes time to build the trust between different partners. Especially I see when regulatory agencies are involved, the things get sometimes delayed. But end of the day, if there is a trust in the team, if we are working together, I think it's an excellent expression of partnerships on this from the government of Pakistan side, from NARC, PRC, from Rafan Mays, and from the different experts, IITA. So I believe that sometimes in the beginning, we thought that it would be an easy course, but for me, I have learned that we have to have a very good trust and keep the partnerships going, and ultimately the fruitful results are there. So just want to thank all the partners involved and the CABI team as well.
Thank you. And yes, CABI has played an important role in holding everything together. So anything else, or we'll go to my lightning round, which should be fun. So I want you to pretend that you are in a very short elevator ride with, I'm going to say, the richest person in the world. I'm thinking this is Bill Gates, but it could be, there are other candidates, as you know, and probably somebody in South Asia equally as rich. So you're in the elevator, short ride, the richest person in the world, and you have 1 minute to convince him or her of to put all of his money into commercializing aflatoxin biocontrol. What would you say? And let's, if you don't mind being put on the spot, we could go around. We could start with the speakers and then go to the guests. So we could start with you, Hillary, and we'll just go right down the line.
Sure. So aflatoxin is sometimes a hidden but very important, significant threat to human health and productivity. And the aflatoxin biocontrol has been the most effective approach for mitigating the aflatoxin problem in food and feed. And it's a relatively minor investment in developing these products and the infrastructure in countries worldwide, but it has a huge benefit. So it's a significant return on investment, and it has really significant impacts on human health and economic viability in countries throughout the world.
Thank you, Hillary. Ranajit.
There's a certain thing called aflatoxin, which is hidden. People can't see it. And it kills people, it kills animals, it hampers trade, and the countries cannot earn or their true export potential. There is a technology that has been tested and tried and scaled up in other countries. And the same kind of technology can be actually scaled up, developed and scaled up in developing nations through partnerships. We need to develop these partnerships, develop products, but more than develop products, make them available to farmers and to people and benefit their health. And we believe that we can do it because we have demonstrated that it can be done. But it needs investment, it needs patience. It cannot be done overnight. It needs patience, and we need help from not only the development investors, but also from the governments, from the private sector, and from the farming community at large, so that this technology is made available on a large scale, and people benefit, and the children become more healthy, and the countries earn more foreign exchange, and the farmers earn more income. And we can get it done. We can do it.
Thank you. Let's jump right to Martins.
Yeah, well, I will tell Bill Gates, if I happens to be with him, that there are great opportunities in any solution to challenges of health and trade barriers anywhere in the world. When you have a solution to any challenges that inhibit your health, that inhibit trade opportunities, there are great business returns there. And that is exactly what Harvestfield has done. We believe that aflatoxins inhibit health and also inhibit trade. So therefore, any solution that is brought into solving that two challenges, definitely there will be a lot of opportunities there. And that is why we are here.
Fantastic. Sabian.
Yeah, Deborah, I would say that nature has solution for every problem. So aflatoxin is the Aflapac technology is a very good example of this. We have good aspergillus to outcompete the bad aspergillus. So aflatoxin cause issues not only for our animal, for our health, but even for our children. So investing on the Aflapac technology would not only help to save our next generation, but would also help to enhance the country trade, which will strengthen our economy and which will help us to generate very well-being for our people. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sabian. And Dr. Atif.
Yeah, I would say that health is wealth. So if you want your Microsoft to your business to go along, so people should live long. So you need to invest in this aflatoxin so
That's good.
Your business flourishes. So I think.
Thank you. That's
Deborah,
yes.
My last comment. Since you talked about Bill Gates, and I actually had the opportunity of talking to Bill Gates about aflatoxin. In 2011, he came and visited our trials, and we had a face-to-face conversation for about half an hour. And subsequent to that, that's when the grant from the Gates Foundation for Aflatoxin Control was approved.
Wonderful. Well, we want the whole thing. We don't want just the grant. We want the whole bundle. But anyway, we have I think it's 11:54. Do we have any more time for any more people to do a lightning round, or do we need to wrap?
Maybe a couple more minutes will be fine.
Okay, great. Okay, do we have another volunteer? Alejandro?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Babar.
Go ahead. Well, I can only say a couple of things. And the first thing I would say is to improve the food safety will increase the ability as well as the agility, which will improve the health, agriculture, and commerce system. People's health will determine the resilience of a society. And there is no better investment than improving people's health, and also to bring and help communities to prosper economically. Trade definitely brings economic benefits and prosperity. It's a worth making investment. That's it.
Thank you. Wonderful. I'm going to pick on Alejandro and Pushpak to wrap us up real quickly.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. And I think that what I would mention is that aflatoxin is the most dangerous substance. We should not be having this conversation about trying to convince. I do not know how can we draw more attention on this. It either kills you instantly or kills you, over a long period, but it reduces well-being. It really should not be a topic of discussion, but should be discussing how best to address it. We can do that, but it's something that it should receive way more attention. If it had another name like arsenic or something, it will have more attention. Mm-hmm. Extremely dangerous. We should be getting more resources to be able to provide people with a better life through management strategies of this toxin. Let me just mention that I saw Bhupinder raising his hand. Maybe he has a comment.
Oh, thank you. Bhupinder, did I miss you, Bhupinder? Oh,
yeah,
please
thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm really honored to be a part of this discussion today. And just to introduce, I am based in Arusha in Tanzania, and we have started the Aflasafe manufacturing plant last year in August in Tanzania. And it is the commercialization of Aflasafe is a little different. It's not as any other product, and it requires a lot of effort and also the collaboration with the government and the regulations and the trading practices which the traders have. So it is a combination of, it's a quite complex way of launching, and we are still struggling in the sense to get the right approach to the market, wherein the farmers would really adopt this product, and then we can see the scale. So it's not easy, but it is definitely exciting. And as everybody has said, it is an important product and it's for the health, but at the same time, how the message could go to the farmers to adopt it. And unfortunately, we have had hurdles due to the COVID starting last year. So that has slowed down the approach. But nevertheless, we are very confident that this would take off in the time to come. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you. And I know we have to wrap, but let me give Pushpak like 10 seconds to because you've done so much for this effort in Pakistan.
Thanks, Deborah. So whoever the person is, either it's Mr. Gates or whoever, I'll just ask him, the lunch for which you're going, how would you feel if you were told that there are carcinogenic poisons in that food? Right. Now, how would you feel if you were told that there are millions of kids being exposed to such poisons? Good news is there's a solution to all that. So let's talk more when you're time.
Thank you. Thank you all. And this has been a phenomenal experience for me. And it's wonderful to see you all on the screen. And I will let, I know Ermias needs to take us to home here, so.
Well, thank you very much for this. And as somebody who does research on improving livestock productivity in low-income countries in Ethiopia, Vietnam, and a number of other places, I'm keenly aware of the issues of aflatoxin. So I think this session today has been extremely impactful, and I think a lot of information there, and hopefully we'll have opportunity to work together in the near future as well. So again, thank you for everybody for joining us today on this USDA Foreign Agricultural Service supported event. We very much appreciate USDA FAA's support to enable rich discussion on all action tracks of the UN Food Systems Summit and highlight innovations developed through US government and host country collaboration. And in particular today, we've seen the involvement of USDA FAS in aflatoxin in different places. And so we really appreciate the support and also funding some of this research. The UN Food Systems Action Track 1 seeks ideas to help in the goal of accessing sufficient quantities of affordable and safe food products for all people at all times. And today's discussion exactly addresses the Action Track 1, and we hope that this will be taken into consideration during the UN Food Systems Dialogue. The discussion that we have today will be summarized and submitted to the Food Systems Summit in the next couple of weeks. And in the next few days, we will be sending you a draft of this report for your review as well. And hopefully we'll get your feedback within a week time so that we can include it in the final draft. And the recording of today's dialogue will be available in a few days on the UC Davis World Food Center website. Thank you again for spending your time and sharing your knowledge with us, and have a good day and have a good evening.